This week on the WriterCon podcast.
My one piece of advice is be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up.
Welcome to WriterCon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Your hosts are William Bernhardt, best-selling novelist and author of the Red Sneaker books on writing, and Lara Bernhardt, author of the Wantland Files book series.
Thank you, Jesse Ulrich. Hey there, writers. Thanks for joining us. I'm just back in town from another of my mysterious research trips. Will I reveal the subject of the research? Yeah, once I finish the book, which will not be this podcast. We can celebrate the release of, like in this 2-week period, just before this podcast came out, not one, but 2 books have come out. Written by WriterCon friends who've been on the podcast and come to the conference every year. I'm talking about John Wooley, been here many times. He just released Beauty and the Bund. Lynette Bennett just released her memoir, Broadway Dreamer. And Lara, I think you edited both of those books, didn't you?
Did. Yes. Edited and designed. I sure did. And I'm so happy for Lynette. I've been working with her and watching her progress for more years than I think I'm willing to admit. And I'm so happy for her to see that book come out.
Yeah. Good news.
And
Jesse?
John's books are just always so much fun to read. I love working with him too. So all good things.
You think, the book Beauty and the Bund is basically typed. It's an epistolary novel, to use my English major. It's, it's people typing letters back and forth to each other, one of whom is John and one of whom is his co-author, Robert. I mean, Jesse, is there an audiobook here?
Yeah, there's a great audiobook here. Them just reading letters to each other. John, call me.
You would have to play Robert because sadly, Robert Brown, his co-author, has passed. But John could be John.
Yeah. That's actually jumping ahead in your own script. Talking about Barry's new book. We've been constantly having conversations about how we can do an audiobook about,
even though he's in Portugal.
Well, no, not even just him being in Portugal. It's just like books about his dad. Who's going to play his dad and who's going to play him? Because he can't do both. And I was like, what if I read you and you read your dad? So,
because Dad usually has the punchline, so that makes sense.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about the books whose titles we can't mention, or I have to check an adults only box, but it's Jack, and then there's another word, and it means it's stuff written by Barry's father, Jack. Barry has been on the podcast before talking about them. He's done 2, and apparently there's going to be 3 and a 4 in this incredibly incorrectly titled trilogy based upon his late father, right?
I knew Jack my entire life. I don't know if there's 4 books worth of his fascinating wisdom, but Barry's a very good writer. He'll figure it out.
He's a good writer and a good friend.
And he's following in the brilliant footsteps of Douglas Adams.
There you go.
And the 4 books in his Hitchhiker's trilogy. So
might have been 5 toward the end, weren't there? Was there a 5th? Oh, well.
Listen, listeners, make sure to correct us in the rudest way possible.
I'll do anything to get comments, you know?
Yeah.
I just want some feedback. Maybe I should start dropping intentional mistakes.
Yes, we should. I mean, those are the people who like to respond the most.
All right. So. Well, So Long and Thanks for All the Fish was the 4th book in the trilogy. If more came after, I know Salmon of a Doubt was partial.
What about Mostly Serious or something like that?
Yeah, and that one wasn't finished. I don't think it was part of that.
It doesn't count. Wasn't finished.
Doesn't count if he didn't finish it. All right. Our interview today is with Matt Goldman. Matt is a New York Times bestselling author and a playwright and an Emmy Award-winning television writer. He wrote for Seinfeld, wrote for Ellen, the sitcom, and a bunch of other shows. Now he's written a novel, not his first, but very good, called The Murder Show, which involves, you guessed it, the making of a television show that goes bad in a really big way. It's a really pulse-racing novel about secrets and old friends and how the past never really leaves us. Is that that's like a paraphrase of Faulkner, isn't it? The thing about the past is it's never past, or something like that. Anyway, looking forward to talking to Matt, but first, the news. News story number 1. This relates to, sadly, the passing of a wonderful author. Her name was L.J. Smith. She was the original author of the Vampire Diaries books. She's passed away at the age 37. That's not actually what this story is about. This is a story, well, it's not exactly, Jesse, your series of writers behaving badly. It's, just let me tell the story. So she wrote these YA novels for the Vampire Diaries series, which of course became a hit television drama and led to what the Wall Street Journal called one of the strangest comebacks in literary history. Here's what happened. Let me set the stage. There's a company called Alloy Entertainment. They had noticed the popularity of the Twilight books, and they wanted a young adult version of some supernatural romance thing. So they asked L.J. Smith to write what became the Vampire Diaries, a series centered on this love triangle involving a girl named Elena and it's vampire brothers, right? Stefan and Damon, yeah. So she wrote the first 3 books for HarperCollins, were published starting in 1991. A 4th was released. No, all 3 of them were in 91, then a 4th in 92. Let me give you a little background about Ms. Smith. Her first agent was her typist, okay? The typist had never represented a client. She wrote the trilogy, according to her, and what she told the Wall Street Journal. She wrote the original trilogy for an advance of only a few $1,000s, not realizing probably, because she didn't go to law school, that made it work for hire, because they hired her to write this specific thing. So she didn't ultimately own the copyright or the characters. By 2007, the sales of the Vampire Diaries had skyrocketed, and she was contracted to write another trilogy, but it didn't happen. No, that trilogy did happen. It's in 2014. By that time, the series had sold more than 5 million copies, but Ms. Smith was no longer writing them. Alloy fired her over what they called creative differences, and then hired a ghostwriter at first, and later somebody used the pen name Aubrey Clark to actually write the final 6 books in the series. And since Alloy owned it, they could control who wrote it and who didn't. And so L.J. Smith, the creator of this thing, could no longer write her own characters for a publisher. And so what did she do? She retreated to fan fiction. So she's writing fan fiction about the characters she created, but because it was fan fiction and not being sold, she could do it. And people came to her because they knew she was the original author of this thing. And it's a convoluted story, but bizarre that someone is creating successful series characters, even becomes a successful television series, but it ends up not being able to write their own characters, except maybe for free online. I don't know. Laura, what are your thoughts on this?
We've talked before about how critical it is to read your contracts, read them very carefully, and watch for things like this. Bill has mentioned before, publishers are out to make money. They are not there as the supporter of the arts, and they're going to be looking at their own bottom line. So for them, this is an ideal situation. They paid very little, and it was over, and they got to keep everything else. But it drives me crazy when the actual creators of content are tossed to the side like
ripped
this.
Off, yeah.
Ripped off.
I mean, I know it was legal, but that doesn't make me like it anymore.
Exactly. We're not suggesting that they did anything illegal, but that's why you have to be so very careful and pay attention to your contract.
You probably knew, because for one thing, I always have to drop a Superman reference in every episode. And two, this is not Star Trek. All.
Where's that one?
That'll come later. Jesse covers that sometimes. But did you know that at one point Paramount offered to sell Star Trek back to Roddenberry for $150,000? But he said no because he didn't have it. Oh my gosh.
That's rough.
But getting back to Superman, because that's another rights issue, because as most people know, they got Superman published and it was a huge hit, and they did make some money in the early years until they were fired. But the point is they weren't in control of their own character because of an agreement that they'd had to sign. That's how they got the thing published, but it meant they didn't own Superman anymore and eventually got cut out of it. Jesse, you look like this is not pleasing you, but
no, it's very upsetting. And Tulsa has its own. The woman who created Strawberry Shortcake and Rainbow Bright, I believe, lives in town and also doesn't control the rights to her creations.
Does not create it. Wow. Why? How? Yeah. Something she signed?
Yeah, probably. And I'm just like, again, legality and morality are two different things. And just because people didn't do anything legally wrong doesn't mean it's not morally corrupt. Mm-hmm. And stealing people's inventions and then not giving them the ability to continue to make money off them is just wrong.
Yeah. That's a good phrase. Legally right, but morally wrong. Corrupt is more dramatic, though. Yes.
I was throwing some flair in there for you.
Yeah.
I didn't know Strawberry Shortcake creator was right here in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep. Yeah. We met her at an event. She was doing it was technically just a signing because she doesn't, I think maybe she did write a book or someone wrote a book about her, and she was just, people were bringing Care Bears and Strawberry Shortcakes and she was signing them and taking pictures, and she was dressed up like Strawberry Shortcake. She's a delightful woman. So.
Wow. Painful.
Go support her somehow.
Bottom line, writers.
Look at them contracts.
Yeah.
Listen, good use of AI.
Get somebody else to look at it.
Run the contract through AI. Be like, do I still own the rights to my characters? That's a good use of AI.
If you have an agent, your agent should be able to help. But even if you don't, get a lawyer to look at it. Yes. Seriously. It's like an hour of her or his time, and it's worth it.
And they can let you know. And don't get desperate. Don't get so excited that you're being offered a contract that you're just desperate, and sign it and go.
Yeah. All right. News story number 2. You can file this under I never thought I'd be saying these words, but here's the headline. According to a recent study, AI-generated poetry is indistinguishable from human-written poetry, and furthermore, is rated more favorably by humans, not by AI. This study, they took AI-generated text, which obviously is evolving over time, but they used, and this may be key, I'm using the words from the study itself, non-expert readers, take that to mean what you will, and gave them samples of both AI-generated poetry and human-generated poetry, and asked whether they could tell the difference. They could not with any reliable consistency. They couldn't, and according to the people running the study, the poetry came from well-known human poets, but still nobody could tell the difference. And furthermore, when they came to rate how much they liked a particular poem, focusing on particular qualities like rhythm and beauty, and, you probably already know where this is going. AI poetry generally was rated more favorably than human written poems. Maybe the computer programs have learned how to imitate something people like. I don't know, Jesse. Would you read a poem written by an AI program?
I mean, It depends on how long it is. But the short
Would
poem,
you read a poem written by anyone?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, other than like free form poetry, right? Poetry has set rules, and that I think makes it easier for AI to fake human poetry, because it's like, okay, I have to have this many words with this many syllables, right? Like it can intuit the rules of poetry faster than a human being can. Doesn't mean it's good, even though these people judged it so. Also, poetry is like wine in the sense that people think good, the bad version of it is better than it actually is, right? So, I don't trust these people. Like,
Lara,
what were they asked? Were they asked, is this good poetry? Like, if someone asked me, read this poem, is it good? I'm gonna be like, yeah, sure. I'm like,
yeah. And who are these non-experts? I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean they're not poets themselves?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Lara, I'll pose this to you, because what they were speculating in the report was that AI poems were simpler and more direct, and thus it might be easier for non-experts who aren't accustomed to poetry to understand. And of course, if something is easier to understand, you're going to like it more, and that might be why AI was rated better by a significant margin. I don't know. What do you think?
I think you're probably right, but I like Jesse's point that people who know wines are probably going to pick something very different than an average consumer. I mean, don't drink a lot, but when I have a little bit of wine, it's usually super cheap, like bottom end. Nobody would rate that great wine, but if I open the bottle and I like it, I like it. So yes, it's very possible that it was simpler, easier to understand, or maybe it came across an algorithm of what was going to make people happy, what would make it easier to read.
I mean, when you're in the English department, part of what you're taught, not exclusively, it's not the only way to analyze a poem, but part of it is looking for author intent. You know, what is he or she trying to get across? Why have they left out some words? Why have they broken the line there? Why does this rhyme but not that? What hidden or subterranean meanings are there? Can you do that when it was generated by, or does that just mean we were just making all that stuff up to begin with?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I think that's what I was wondering. Can any AI, has it adapted to the point to actually reach that level of nuance yet? Because obviously when we're using simile and metaphor and analogies and, I think, but maybe that's that complexity that gets lost on some people or just didn't resonate with the people that they were asking about.
A human being will know when to break the rules of the thing they're writing for effect. I don't think we're there with AI, and AI is never going to be able to come up with a weird, Faulkner quote.
So, right. Well, they might, but who knows? Whatever.
Yeah. If it does, we're going to think it's AI because, again,
the difference is, if you told me AI wrote that quote about the thing about the past is it's never past, I would have, if you said that was AI, I would have thought that's just stupid word salad. But if you tell me it came from Faulkner, I'm like,
Are we AI racists? Think about it.
Possibly.
Well, I don't 100% love it. I would have expected this poetry to also have the word version of having a third arm or 20 fingers
Six
or
fingers
like that. But
15 line sonnet.
It's adapting. Look at what Ralph was creating when he was here last week.
When he was creating those great short stories about our cats. Yeah.
Then the book covers to go with them.
Yeah, and they were good.
I'm obsessed.
Did you understand why I put in our notes Ralph's jazz music? You know, that little gizmo that he was playing jazz, our favorite form of music, not all weekend long.
I felt like I was in like a peanut special, waiting for a bastard to get up and do a little Snoopy dance.
Here's what you probably didn't know. That was all AI generated music. He wasn't streaming anything. AI was making it up as we went along.
No, you're right. I didn't know that. I thought it had just tapped into a jazz station.
Yeah. No.
So I'm just as bad as these people who like the poetry is what you're telling me. Like I'm on the same
Or the
level.
weird thing is, why was Ralph playing it? Because he thinks he's, young 20s. He thinks it's cool. Woo. AI made music and it's enjoyable.
Whatever gets kids in the jazz, I'll take it. So.
Are you going to be our senior jazz correspondent from now on, Jesse?
I would love to be your jazz correspondent. So love jazz. So,
oh, come on. Nobody really likes jazz.
I like jazz. I'm weird. Okay. I'm a weird person.
I love Charlie Brown music.
Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. Delicious.
And on that note, let's segue to Craft Corner. Today, we are going to wrap up this fantastic series we've been getting from Desiree Duffy of Black Chateau and Books That Make You. She's been talking about reviews and different kinds of reviews, but today's focus is on getting reviews from consumers, or in other words, readers, the people who buy your book. And she knows what she's talking about. Take it away, Desiree.
Craft Corner.
There are 3 types of book reviews: editorial, endorsements, and number 3, what we're going to talk about today, consumer and reader reviews. These are reviews that are written by everyday readers on platforms like Goodreads, retail sites, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo. In some cases, they even include the verified review check mark to let the reading community know that this is a real, honest review from a reader. The purpose? Social proof. This can help influence the potential buyers because they're reading real reader opinions, unlike an editorial review or a celebrity endorsement that might not carry as much weight. The volume of these types of reviews can improve visibility and algorithms on retail platforms. Again, Amazon will lift up books that have a lot of positive reviews to other readers. Real consumer reviews are still one of the most trusted forms of marketing. Think how you might go and look at reviews of products when buying that refrigerator or when checking out a new car. It's the same kind of mentality. Readers love to read reviews from other readers to see if that book is right for them. And it can even help with advertising and other types of marketing. For example, a substantial number of reviews is often needed to get a BookBub promotion. So there's a lot of ways that these types of reviews can help you out. The big question, though, is how do you get them? I have a few ideas. First of all, include a call to action in the actual book. Enjoyed this book? Please leave me a review. Use your own newsletter, your email marketing, and social media to ask readers for honest reviews. Some authors do giveaways or offer incentives in exchange for honest reviews. 2 things there. I always recommend asking for honest reviews. Also, be aware that some platforms, like Amazon's terms of services, don't allow for incentivized reviews or paid reviews. Also be careful because there are a lot of companies out there that will offer you paid reviews on Amazon, verified reviews on Amazon. But sometimes these companies are a little less reputable, and it really isn't something that can help your ratings on Amazon. And it could actually lead to some really bad things with Amazon if you're violating their terms of service. However, there's lots of benefits that go along with getting authentic consumer reviews. Those high ratings, the review volume, well, it can help drive your sales. It can also give you, as an author, some real valuable feedback. You get into the head of your readers. You can find out what they think of your characters, which can help improve or offer you ideas or give you some insights in what you're going to be doing with the next book in the series or with your writing in general. So go out there and get those consumer reviews. There's lots of ways that they can help you as an author and your book to succeed. A big thank you goes out to William Bernhardt and the team for making me a part of Craft Corner.
Thank you so much, Desiree Duffy. Now let's talk to Matt Goldman. Matt Goldman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
All right, we have a traditional first question. If you could offer writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
My one piece of advice is be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. It's hard. Everybody has days that go badly. Everybody gets stuck. Everyone gets frustrated. Even no matter who your favorite author is, how popular they are, what a mega million bestseller they are, their first draft probably stinks. Everybody's does. There's work to be done. So if you spend a day writing and you look back over it and you think, oh, why did I think this was good? That's normal. So go easy on yourself and just know it's a process.
That's great advice. I'm not sure we've had that one before.
I like it.
In my case, and I've written over 60 books and still you finish your first draft and I think, when did I forget how to write? This is terrible. And then you go back and start revising it. Yeah. Yeah.
So my analogy is your first draft is like shoveling the driveway in a blizzard. Like when you're done, you still have a lot of work to do, but you can kind of see where the driveway is. So it makes it a little easier for the next pass.
Oh, I like that. That's right. Because you can see the driveway. All right. Well, let's talk about writing. There are many things you could have done, I bet. What inspired you to enter the world of writing?
Oddly enough, you probably haven't got this answer either. It was stand-up comedy. I was in college. I was a chemistry major. I was planning on going to medical school. Yeah. At the end of my junior year, some friends invited me to see stand-up comedy live, which I had never seen before. I'd always been a big fan, but never actually seen it live. Mm-hmm. And I went and saw it live. And for some reason that I cannot explain to this day, I thought I should be doing that. And so I started doing stand-up and I really fell in love with the writing part of it. The writing. And then once I moved into narrative stories on television shows as a writer, I started to get more interested in character, more interested in story. And that was really my entryway.
Yeah. And as you've already said, you very successfully wrote for a number of television shows. Like what? Give us a list. What are some of the shows you've worked on?
Seinfeld.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. Ellen, the sitcom, not the talk show. Yeah. The New Adventures of Old Christine. A lot of shows, some good, some not so good, but yeah, I did it for a long time.
But you were there.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. You've already mentioned that you're living in Minnesota now. Uh-huh. And is that why you shifted into books? Did that make it difficult to work in television, or are you still?
That's not why I moved to Minnesota. I've always loved being in Minnesota, and I have had a presence of some kind here since the year 2000. Well, I grew up here, and then I was in LA for 14 years full time, and then I started to build part of my life back here again. I had always wanted to write books my whole life, really, and just stumbled in the other direction. And it took me a while to come back, but it does make, when you write books, you can live anywhere you want. So, and I much prefer, for my personality and my temperament, writing books is a much better place for me to be. I have not been in production on a television show since 2017. I did consult on one by Zooming into the writer's room in 2020 because everybody was on Zoom back then. Yes, of course. So it didn't matter where I was, but I haven't worked in television since. And I've been so busy with books that I have not even thought about it. Yeah.
Interesting. How did you transition? How did you make that transition from television into the busy but quieter world of books?
Yeah, there was a change in the television landscape. And what happened was television got very good with shows like The Sopranos and The Wire and Breaking Bad. There's a long list of shows really that kind of created the second golden age of television, and TV became very cool all of a sudden. It had always been, you want to work in film, and if you can't work in film, then work in TV. But those shows changed that. And it was all the talk. Everybody was talking about the shows they were watching, but they were all dramas. And so the people in charge of comedy, the studios and the networks, thought, we want to make comedy cool too. But comedy's not a cool thing. If you look at the great comedic characters, Jackie Gleason is Ralph Cramden, Lucille Ball, Fraser Crane, George Costanza. They're not cool people. They're idiots. But we love them because they show that side of us. We can relate to them. That's why we can watch those shows over and over again. And when they tried to make comedy cool, they made it jokier, slicker, less human is what they did. They made it less human, and I started to lose interest in writing it. So I thought, I'll write drama. To do my homework to be a drama writer, I started reading crime fiction because I thought, I'll have to work on a TV show and a cop show or something. And so I'd always been a big reader, but kind of a literary fiction snob for no good reason, none whatsoever.
I like literary fiction. It's okay. You don't have to make excuses.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I mean, I still love it. But I'd see crime fiction books in the airport, I called them big font books because they were the Da Vinci Code and Gone Girl, and they were all, and now I have a big font book. But anyway, but so I started reading it and fell in love with it because it had what I was missing from comedy, which is in a different way. But when you have a crime at the center of your story, there's a dead body, a missing person. There's kind of a built-in engine to the story. Your characters don't have to carry the whole weight of it. And so, cause things are going to move along. The phone's going to ring and someone's going to say, we got the prints off the gun or whatever it is. Things move forward and it frees up space for your characters to just be people. And you could focus on them and their relationships. And it was exactly what I was missing. Yeah. And so I had this break after kind of devouring the genre for a few years. I had a 4-month gap between shows and I just sat down and started writing with no real plan. And that book became Gone to Dust and it changed my life. Yeah.
Huge, great review from Lee Child. What a deal.
Oh, yeah. Very fortunate.
To me, the big difference, I know what drew me to writing books. You can do it by yourself. Sure, you got to get a publisher and all that, but you can do it by yourself. Whereas in television, it's the writer's room and it's almost always collaborative, isn't it?
Yes. And, I'm not saying one way is better than the other. I happen to be quite introverted. I say I'm an introvert with social skills, but
exactly.
I think there's a term for that. I think they call it an extroverted introvert. Like we can pretend for a while.
Yes.
You're friendly and extroverted, but then it's really draining and we have to go away and recharge for a while.
Yeah. And that's what it's about. It's recharging. So when I was in a room full of writers for 60, 70, 80 hours a week, as funny as they were and as smart as they were, it was exhausting for me. And so I do much better by myself as a writer. Just as my person does much better. Yeah.
That makes sense. So after that, then came Carolina Moment. Is that right?
Well, I wrote 4 books featuring a private detective named Nils Shapiro. Gone to Dust, Broken Ice, The Shallows, and Dead West. Then I wrote my first standalone, Carolina Moonset.
Right.
Is the name of that.
Moonset,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that's the one that got the great blurb from Harlan Coben. Another.
Yeah, it got, I can't remember which book Harlan blurb, but it's received, actually that book has a blurb on the cover from William Kent Kruger, which is nice. Yeah.
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 So, okay, enough about the past. Tell us about your new book, The Murder Show.
The Murder Show is about a television showrunner, which I know something about. I've done that job before. It's about a television showrunner who gets involved in a real life murder investigation. So how it happens is he has a show called The Murder Show on a Netflix-like platform, and it's been on for 3 seasons, and it's on the bubble as to whether it's going to come back for a 4th. This is all backstory.
All right.
And he goes in and pitches.
Similar to the setup from my series. Sorry. I'm just.
Oh, really?
Okay. Sorry. But please.
Well,
mine doesn't have murders, though. Mine has ghosts. Please continue. Sorry.
Okay. I have no ghosts in mine. That's a spoiler. There's not one.
Thank goodness. No competition here.
No.
Yes. And he pitches his 4th season. The network hates it. They say, come back, or, you got to come up with something better. So he's at that age. He's 40 years old. He's at that age as a television writer that he's feeling he's too old to be a staff writer on someone else's show. That he has to have his own show or his career is over. So he kind of has that desperation, which I also know that feeling, which is not pleasant. And he's trying to come up with that new storyline, and the strike happens. So the Writers Guild strike we had recently, I use in this book. And so he has time now. He goes back to Minnesota because that's where he does his best thinking, which is something that was always true for me too when I worked in television. And while back staying at his parents' house, he runs into his whole old high school friend, Rosalie, who's now a police officer with Minneapolis PD. After they graduated high school, a friend of theirs that summer was killed in a hit and run. Mm-hmm. And it was never solved. No one came forward. They never found out who did it. They don't know if it was on purpose or if it was an accident. And Ro now believes, for reasons I can't get into, that their friend Ricky was murdered. Mm-hmm. And it's outside the jurisdiction of Minneapolis, way out. So she can't investigate it officially. No one's she's talked to is really paying any attention to her, or they're not going to look at that old crime. But since Ethan's home, she talks him into investigating it with her under the guise of, you can use this for your show. This can be your storyline. Something will come from this. And so the two set out to investigate it together. And the more they learn, the kind of the deeper and darker and more twisted it gets.
Sounds fantastic.
So good. Yeah.
Now, all the PR for this book talks about how you wrote this from, quote, personal experience, which is clear, personal expertise, actually.
Personal expertise,
which is clearly true. But, I want the dirt. Are there secrets being buried in this book, or?
Oh, well, there's not secrets, but there is a lot about writing in this book. Because Ethan, he's been a professional writer his whole life. And in real life situations, he draws on what he knows as a writer. So there is some writing talk in this thing. Yeah, there is no like gossip about real life people or anything like that.
The sequel could be the Seinfeld murders or something like that.
Yes.
Maybe not.
I'm interested how you approach a new project. I was definitely hearing some threads from this book that you've, I think, pulled from your own life and woven in there. But
I'm sorry, everybody just went away. Hold on a sec.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I might have. Hold on.
We can still see you.
Okay, that's where I can't see you, but as long as you can see me. Okay, what was the question again?
Yeah, so I'm hearing from what you were just telling us, I hear some threads, I think, that you pulled from your own life and wove through this book of yours. And I'm just interested how you approach a new project. Do you outline, take a bunch of notes? Do you tend
I don't outline. I know very little.
Would you call yourself a pantser?
Oh, definitely.
Really?
Extreme.
Okay.
Extreme. And sometimes people have a hard time believing that happens in genre fiction. But it has been my experience working on over 500 episodes of television in which we had to outline. There was a whole process of outlining and getting approvals to move forward. And, you know, the writer's room would develop a story in great detail. The writer would take those notes away and write an outline faithful to those notes and think it's pretty good, bring it to the room. Invariably, the room would say, this doesn't work. We need to fix it. We'd spend a few days fixing it. We'd all think it was good. We'd take it to the studio. They'd say, this doesn't work. Same thing would happen with the network. We'd rewrite it 20 times until we all thought, like 50 people thought it was a great outline. The writer would write a script faithful to that outline and it wouldn't work. And the reason it wouldn't work is because the part of your brain you use to outline is a very logical, this happens, that happens, this happens. It's the same part of your brain you use to make a shopping list. It makes sense in an outline, but if you create characters who are three-dimensional and behave true to what you created, they're complicated. Real people are complicated. It's messy. And they don't fit into that outline all the time. And it gets weird. You start to compromise your characters. If you've ever heard a character say, if you've read this or seen it in a show or in a movie, if they say, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but there's a good chance they do that because they're acting out of character. And the reason they are is to fit a predetermined story. So
Right.
I would rather let it be a little messy, get stuck once in a while, and just do it from the inside out.
Mm-hmm. Well, the story's got to come out of the character, or at least fit the character, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Can I ask, what's next? We've got the murder show now, but what are you working on after that?
This is going to sound weird, but so much is next. After the murder show, 5 more books are coming out in the next 2 years.
Wow.
That are already written, or
3 of them are written.
Mm-hmm.
The next 2 will be written in the next year. So my first 4 feature a private detective named Nils Shapiro, and then Nils has gone away. The number 1 email I get is, when's Nils coming back? And that's what people ask at book events. And so
I know you can relate to that.
A lot of series writers can, right? So Nils does appear in 3 chapters of the murder show. He's back in a limited capacity, but it does set up his return. That book is written. It's called Dark Humor, and it'll be published in December. So it's coming in
Amazing.
10 months or 7 months, whatever the math is. Somebody else do it.
That's not even math. That's like
kind of running out of time, but you're so prolific. Real quick, can I know what your typical writing day looks like for you? Like, what's your process that's keeping you moving and producing so much so quickly?
I treat it like a full-time job. It's my only job. I'm lucky. And so I start pretty much right after I wake up and pretty much work till 5 o'clock or so. That can be a 12-hour day. It can be an 8-hour day. Sometimes if I go by word count, if it goes great one day, I can be done in 3 hours. It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen once in a while. And I do it 7 days a week. So if there's a big something on a weekend, I will, maybe cut it in half, but I do it all the time. One of the reasons I work 7 days a week isn't because of work ethic or lack of any other kind of life. I do it because I don't outline and I need to keep that story moving in my head. I don't want to lose the thread.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So, and then a year from now, my first book with Minotaur will be out. It's called Liar's Creek.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be the start of a new series. They're very happy with it.
Fantastic.
That's in production. And then next fall, I have 2 books coming out. One is another Nils book, which has not been written. And one is a historical novel that I wrote in 2018. My publisher made an offer on it. I turned it down, not because of the money. I just thought there's not very much crime in it. And that's not really the point of that book. And I didn't know if they were the right publisher. And my agent said, we'll get another publisher. It took a while to make all these decisions. And by the time we went back out, the pandemic started.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just nothing was going on for a while. But now that book is being published. It'll in the fall of 2026. And then spring of 2027 will be, I think, the second Liar's Creek book.
Fantastic. Well, we've got a lot to look forward to then. That's wonderful. Matt, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Bye-bye now. Just a few parting words. The WriterCon cruise is still coming up May 31st to June 7, leading from Seattle for an Alaskan cruise. Go online and check out our itinerary. It's fantastic. And I'm excited because I just lined up an agent. We had somebody before who had to drop out, but the person I got to take her place is a superstar. And not only is she going to be speaking on this cruise, she has committed to, if you want to, meet one-on-one with every single person on the cruise. I mean, with our group, not everybody on the cruise boat, but everybody in the WriterCon group. Plus, you're going to get 20 hours of writing instructions scheduled when the boat is at sea, not when it's in port. And if you want more information, please visit our website, which is writercon.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Lara, are you coming on this cruise?
Yes. And I want to see some whales. I'm excited.
I think that might actually happen. And of course, then if you want all small group workshop-y, on your work in progress, we're going to have the retreat. That's in July at Canebrake. All right. Until next time, hey, everybody, keep writing. And remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. See you next time.